I stand at the back of Sophie's kindergarten classroom, watching my 5-year-old daughter arrange wooden blocks into perfect rows while the other kids throw them at each other. She's methodical, precise, just like me. The thought brings a smile, until I hear my husband's voice drifting through the open door. Chelsea's always been career-obsessed, Mark says, his tone dripping with something I've never heard before. Sometimes I wonder if she even remembers she has a family. My fingers curl into fists. I'm Chelsea, the woman who spent 3 months researching the best schools in the district, who rearranged her entire work schedule to be here for Sophie's first day. And there's my husband, casually destroying my reputation among other parents before the school year even begins. Must be hard, another parent responds. My wife stayed home when ours were young. Kids need their mother, you know. Yeah. Mark's laugh is hollow. Try telling that to someone who thinks Excel spreadsheets are more important than family dinner. The blocks in Sophie's tower tumble. She doesn't cry or complain, just starts rebuilding, her little face set with determination. I want to run to her, hold her close, tell her that Mommy loves her more than anything. Instead, I stay rooted, letting Mark's words sink into my skin like poison. She's got these big dreams, he continues, always chasing the next promotion, the next big account. Meanwhile, I'm the one getting Sophie ready for school, making sure Emily doesn't completely self-destruct. Emily, his precious baby sister, the perpetual disaster who somehow always needs just a little more help, a little more money, a little more of my husband's attention. Sounds rough, man. The other father's voice is sympathetic. Women these days, they forget what really matters. I step into the doorway, my heels clicking against the linoleum. Both men turn, and I see the moment Mark realizes I've heard everything. His face drains of color, but I don't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I walk past them to Sophie's corner. Ready for your first day, sweetheart? My voice comes out steady, practiced from years of boardroom presentations. Sophie nods, already focused on rebuilding her tower. It fell down, she says matter-of-factly, but I'm making it stronger this time. That's my girl. I kiss the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. When I stand, Mark is hovering nearby, guilt written across his features. Chelsea, Not here, I cut him off, my smile fixed in place. This is Sophie's day. The teacher calls for parents to say their goodbyes. I hug Sophie once more, whispering encouragement in her ear. As we leave the classroom, Mark reaches for my hand, a gesture that would have seemed natural just minutes ago. Now it feels like a trap. I pull away, walking ahead of him toward the parking lot. My mind is already racing, calculating. 8 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, promotions delayed because he couldn't handle me out-earning him. All those nights I pretended not to notice the money disappearing into Emily's bottomless pit of needs. It wasn't what you think, Mark says behind me. I was just venting, to strangers, about your ambitious, career-obsessed wife. I turn to face him, and something in my expression makes him step back. Tell me, Mark, how much did Emily's latest fashion venture cost us? The one you didn't think I needed to know about? He pales further. How did you... I'm good with Excel spreadsheets, remember? My laugh sounds foreign to my own ears. Better than you realize. I get into my car, leaving him standing in the parking lot. As I drive toward the office, my hand steady on the wheel, I think about Sophie's fallen tower. About how she didn't cry or give up, but simply started rebuilding, stronger this time. My daughter isn't the only one who knows how to rebuild from destruction. And unlike her innocent tower of blocks, what I'm about to construct will be designed for one purpose: to make my husband regret every word he spoke today. The designer handbag hits the dinner table with a thud, making the wine glasses tremble. Emily beams at us like she's just discovered electricity, not dropped 2 months' salary on leather and brass hardware. Isn't it gorgeous? She runs her fingers along the stitching. Limited edition, only 50 made worldwide. I take another sip of wine, calculating the cost in my head. 3,000, minimum, probably closer to 5. Mark shifts in his chair beside me, and I wonder if he's doing the same math. It's certainly unique, I manage, watching Emily's perfectly manicured hand stroke the bag like it's a newborn. Sophie, thankfully oblivious to the tension, continues pushing peas around her plate. "Daddy, look what I got!" Emily turns to Frank, who sits at the head of the table, oxygen tubes snaking across his collar. The boutique owner said it's an investment piece. Frank's laugh turns into a wheezing cough. "That's my girl, always an eye for quality." He shoots Mark a proud look. "Remember when she won that design competition in high school?" 15 years ago, I mutter into my glass. Mark's hand finds my knee under the table, a warning squeeze. Emily pulls out her phone, scrolling through photos. "And look at these shoes I found to match. They're still on hold, but maybe we should talk about something else," Mark interrupts, his voice tight. "Dad, how was your doctor's appointment?" Frank waves his hand dismissively. "Same old story. Take the pills, use the oxygen, don't overexert." He turns back to Emily. "Now, about those shoes." I stand abruptly, gathering plates. The scrape of ceramic against ceramic cuts through their chatter. "Sophie, help Mommy clear the table." My daughter scrambles to help, but Emily's voice follows us to the kitchen. "Oh, and I almost forgot. I got the most amazing opportunity for my new collection. I just need a little startup capital." The plates clatter into the sink harder than necessary. Sophie flinches. "Sorry, sweetheart," I whisper, smoothing her hair. "Why don't you go play in the living room?" Once she's gone, I grip the counter's edge, listening to the conversation drift in from the dining room. Mark's voice rises and falls in familiar patterns, the same ones he uses when talking down jumpers from ledgers during his firefighting shifts. Always the hero, always the fixer. "Chelsea?" Laura's text lights up my phone. "You okay? You seemed off at work today." I type back quickly. "Family dinner with Emily. The usual drama. Need an escape plan? I can fake an emergency." Before I can respond, Mark appears in the doorway. "Need help?" "Depends." I start loading the dishwasher. "Are you helping me, or are you helping Emily buy those shoes?" His jaw tightens. "That's not fair." "Neither is watching our savings disappear into your sister's closet." I close the dishwasher with more force than necessary. "How much was that bag, Mark? Really? She's going through a rough patch." "She's been going through a rough patch since college." I turn to face him fully. "Meanwhile, Sophie's college fund sits untouched because you keep—" "Everything okay in here?" Emily appears, that damn bag still clutched to her chest. Her smile is sweet, but her eyes are calculating. I thought I heard raised voices. "Everything's fine," Mark says quickly. "Chelsea's just tired from work." I laugh, the sound sharp enough to make both of them flinch. "Yes, work. That terrible burden that pays our bills. Speaking of which, Emily, how's the fashion line doing? Any actual sales this quarter?" Emily's lower lip trembles, her signature move. "You know how hard it is to break into the industry. If I just had a little more time, a little more capital." "Emily," Frank's voice booms from the dining room, followed by harsh coughing. "Come help your old man with his medication." She scurries out, leaving Mark and me in charged silence. He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it makes my chest ache with memories of better times. "We need to talk about this," I say quietly. "Not tonight." He moves toward the door, then pauses. "She's family, Chelsea. You knew that when you married me." I watch him go, thinking about Sophie's college fund, about our dwindling savings, about all the careful plans I'd made crumbling under the weight of Emily's endless needs. My phone buzzes again. Laura, still waiting for a response. I pick it up, fingers hovering over the keys. "Actually," I type, "I could use your help with something. How good are you at tracking financial transactions?" Laura's laptop screen casts a blue glow across her office as she pulls up the bank statements. My hands shake slightly as I lean over her shoulder, each transaction entry hitting like a physical blow. Jesus Christ, she whispers. These transfers to Emily's accounts. Chelsea, there's got to be at least 70,000, I finish, my voice hollow. In the past 8 months alone. The numbers blur together, but certain entries stand out like neon signs. Boutique purchases, first-class flights, designer furniture. Each one perfectly timed to coincide with Mark's overtime shifts at the fire station. Shifts he'd claimed were covering for colleagues, building up goodwill for when Sophie started school. And look at this. Laura points to a series of withdrawals. Cash, always 5,000, always on Fridays. My wedding ring catches the light as I grip the back of her chair. Emily's startup capital for her non-existent fashion line. There's more. Laura's fingers fly across the keyboard. These mortgage payments, they're not going to your house. The screen shows a rental property I've never seen before. 3 bedrooms, downtown location, luxury amenities. Tenant name, Emily Marshall. The room tilts sideways. I steady myself against Laura's desk, bile rising in my throat. He's been paying her rent, all this time, while I've been cutting corners, packing Sophie's lunches, skipping vacations. My phone buzzes. Mark's face lights up the screen. I silence it, watching as 3 more calls come through in quick succession. He knows, Laura says quietly. The bank must have notified him about the account access. Good. I straighten up, smoothing my skirt with trembling hands. Let him sweat. Chelsea, Laura hesitates. What are you going to do? Before I can answer, my phone lights up again. Emily's number this time. I answer on speaker, letting her breathless voice fill the room. Chelsea, thank God. Mark's completely freaking out. He says you've been looking at his accounts. Listen, it's not what you think. Really? My laugh sounds foreign to my own ears. Because I think my husband's been bankrupting our family to finance your fantasy lifestyle. That's not fair. I'm building something here. Mark understands that. Mark understands nothing except how to be manipulated by his baby sister. The words taste like acid. Tell me, Emily, how's the new apartment? The one my daughter's college fund is paying for. Silence crackles across the line. Then, in a smaller voice, does Daddy know you're doing this? Of course. Frank. The perpetual shield, the ultimate authority. I think of him at dinner, wheezing praise for his precious Emily, while Mark beamed and Sophie pushed her peas around her plate. Frank's next on my list, I say coldly, right after I finish dealing with you and Mark. You can't, Emily's voice breaks. Please, Chelsea, I'll pay it back. I just need more time. I end the call, letting the phone clatter onto Laura's desk. My hands have stopped shaking. Send me everything, I tell Laura. Every transaction, every property document, every lie. What about Sophie? The question hits like a punch to the gut. I think of my daughter's face this morning, how she'd asked why Daddy slept on the couch last night, how she'd noticed I wasn't wearing my wedding ring. I'm doing this for Sophie, I say, but the words feel hollow. They're stealing her future. Laura nods, but there's something in her expression, pity, understanding, that makes me look away. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from Mark. Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I type back 3 words. No more lies. As I gather my things to leave, Laura catches my arm. Chelsea, revenge might feel good now, but this isn't about revenge. I pull away, the lie bitter on my tongue. This is about justice, but as I walk to my car, my heels clicking against the pavement like a metronome counting down to destruction, I know I'm past the point of justice. The spreadsheets of betrayal swim behind my eyes, each number a nail in the coffin of my marriage. Mark wanted to protect his sister's dreams. Fine. I'll show him what happens when you sacrifice your wife's trust on the altar of family loyalty. By the time I'm done, Emily won't be the only one learning about bankruptcy firsthand. Sophie's crayon scratches against paper at the kitchen table while I stare at divorce papers, the words blurring together in the pre-dawn light. 3 days since I discovered Mark's betrayal, and sleep has become a distant memory. Mummy, look. Sophie holds up her drawing. It's our family. The stick figures tell their own story. Mark and Emily standing together, Frank in his chair with his oxygen tank, me off to the side, smaller than the others. My daughter's art cuts deeper than any bank statement. My phone vibrates. Another message from Mark. Meeting with the chief today. Please don't do this. Think about Sophie. The irony burns. I delete it without responding, just as Laura walks through the door with coffee and a manila envelope. You look terrible, she says, sliding a cup toward me. Thanks. I gesture to Sophie. Sweetie, why don't you go watch cartoons while Mummy talks to Aunt Laura? Once Sophie's gone, Laura opens the envelope. You were right about Frank. Look at these transfer records. The papers show a pattern I hadn't noticed before. Every time Emily received money from Mark, a similar amount moved from her account to Frank's private medical fund. He's using her, I whisper, and she's using Mark, and Mark's using our savings. There's more. Laura pulls out another document. Remember that luxury apartment? It's not just Emily living there. My coffee goes cold as I scan the lease agreement. 2 names, Emily Marshall and Frank Marshall. He moved in with her 6 months ago, Laura explains, right after his last hospitalization. The pieces click together like a twisted puzzle. Frank's mysterious medical treatments, Emily's sudden need for a bigger apartment, Mark's increasing overtime shifts. My phone buzzes again, Emily this time. Dad's asking for you. He's not doing well. Please come over. Don't, Laura warns, reading over my shoulder. It's probably a trap. But something in Emily's message feels different. The usual manipulation replaced by genuine fear. I need to see this for myself. I stand, gathering my things. Can you watch Sophie? Laura grabs my arm. Chelsea, wait. There's something else you should know about Frank. Tell me later. I'm already moving, revenge and curiosity driving me forward. I want to catch them off guard. The luxury apartment building gleams in the morning sun, a monument to my family's betrayal. The doorman recognizes me from the photos I showed him yesterday, lets me up without calling ahead. I hear the arguing before I reach their door. You promised this would work, Emily's voice shrill with panic. The money was supposed to fix everything. Nothing can fix this. Frank's reply ends in a wheezing cough. Your brother's marriage is just collateral damage. Collateral damage? Mark's voice now cracking with emotion. Dad, you said if I helped Emily, you'd use the money for experimental treatments. You promised you were getting better. I press record on my phone, stepping closer to the door. I am getting better, Frank snaps. At accepting reality. This family's legacy matters more than your wife's bank account. Legacy? Emily sounds hysterical. You mean the money you're gambling away at private clubs? I followed you last night. I saw everything. The sound of something shattering. Frank's voice turns dangerous. You ungrateful little... I push the door open. 3 heads snap toward me, faces pale with shock. The luxury apartment is a mess of medical equipment and designer clothes, oxygen tanks next to shopping bags. Chelsea. Mark steps forward, tears in his eyes. I can explain. Save it. I hold up my phone, still recording. I think Frank should explain instead, starting with where my daughter's college fund really went. Frank struggles to his feet, oxygen tube trailing behind him. You have no right. I have every right. My voice is ice. You used your children's love to fund your gambling addiction, made them think they were helping you get better while you threw everything away. Emily sinks onto the designer couch, her perfect facade crumbling. Daddy, tell me she's lying. But Frank's face says everything. Mark stumbles backward like he's been hit, knocking over an oxygen tank. The hiss of escaping air fills the silence. I look at my broken family, the manipulative father, the deceived son, the enabling daughter, each of them trapped in roles they can't escape. My phone buzzes one last time. Laura's message makes my blood freeze. Don't confront them yet. Just found proof Frank's gambling debts are to dangerous people. Get out of there now. Too late. Heavy footsteps sound in the hallway behind me. and Frank's expression shifts from guilt to something like triumph. Right on time, he wheezes. Now, we can all discuss this like family. The email to Mark's fire chief sits in my drafts folder, attachment icons blinking like warning lights, financial records, text messages, proof of his overtime lies, everything needed to destroy his career with a single click. My office phone rings. Chief Harrison's office returning your call, Mrs. Marshall. I stare at the send button. Tell him I'll call back. Laura appears in my doorway as I hang up. You're hesitating. I'm strategizing. The words taste like copper in my mouth. There's a difference. Really? She drops a newspaper on my desk. The headline makes my stomach lurch. Local firefighter under investigation for gambling debts. I didn't leak this, I say, but Laura's already shaking her head. Frank did. Called in an anonymous tip after your confrontation yesterday. He's burning everything down before you can. My phone buzzes with Mark's number. When I don't answer, a text follows. Those men who showed up at Dad's apartment, they're dangerous people. Emily's missing. Please call me. Laura reads over my shoulder. Chelsea, maybe we should slow down. Like they slowed down while stealing Sophie's future. I pull up the email draft again. Frank wants to play with fire. Let's see how he likes getting burned. Speaking of Sophie, Laura hesitates. The school called. She had another anxiety attack today. The words hit like physical blows. I remember Sophie's drawing, me, separated from the family, smaller than the rest. My finger hovers over the send button. Mrs. Marshall? My assistant's voice crackles through the intercom. There's an Emily Marshall here to see you. I look up to find Emily already pushing through my office door, mascara streaked down her face, designer clothes wrinkled like she slept in them. You have to help me, she says, clutching her phone. They're going to kill him. Who? Dad's bookies. They came to collect this morning. She thrusts her phone at me. The screen shows Frank in his apartment, 2 men in suits standing over him. The timestamp, 20 minutes ago. That's not my problem. They mentioned Sophie. Emily's voice cracks. Said they know where she goes to school. The email draft blurs on my screen. I think of Sophie's anxiety attacks, her growing fear of going to school. Had she sensed something watching her? Why should I believe you? I stand, my legs unsteady. This could be another manipulation, because I recorded everything. Emily pulls out a USB drive. Dad's confessions, the gambling, how he used Mark and me. I was going to expose him myself, but then they showed up and... Laura grabs the drive. I'll verify it. My phone buzzes again. Mark. They're taking Dad to the casino. Last chance to end this before it gets worse. You know what happens next, Emily says quietly. Either you help us stop Dad, or those men will. And they won't care who gets caught in the crossfire. I look at the email draft again, thinking of all the careful plans I'd made for revenge. None of them had accounted for professional gamblers threatening my daughter. If I help, I say slowly, it's not for Frank, or you, or even Mark. Emily nods, understanding. For Sophie. And afterward? I close the email draft without sending it. You and Frank stay away from my family, permanently. Chelsea, Laura warns, but I'm already grabbing my coat. Get those recordings to someone we trust, I tell her. And call Mark. Tell him to meet us at the casino. What are you going to do? Emily asks as we head for the elevator. The doors close on us like a trap. I'm going to protect my daughter, I say. And if that means saving Frank from himself first, so be it. But as we drive toward the casino, I realize I'm not just saving Frank. I'm choosing between revenge and protection, between destroying my enemies and preserving what's left of my family. My phone lights up with a final text from Mark. Dad just called. Says he has a plan to fix everything. Don't trust him. Too late. We're already pulling into the casino parking lot, where Frank stands waiting with his oxygen tank and the men in suits. His smile when he sees us is triumphant, like he's won a game we didn't know we were playing. Perfect timing, he wheezes as we approach. Now we can discuss how to keep this in the family. Behind him, the casino lights flash like warning signals, and I realize I've walked straight into another trap. But this time, Sophie's safety hangs in the balance. The casino's private room smells like expensive cigars and desperation. Frank sits at the head of the table, oxygen tank wheezing beside him, while the two men in suits flank him like well-dressed vultures. Emily trembles in the corner, her designer purse clutched like a shield. $500,000, Frank announces, sliding a piece of paper across the polished wood. That's what it'll take to make this go away. I don't touch the paper. You mean that's what you lost? What I invested, he corrects, eyes glinting, in our family's future. Mark bursts through the door, still in his firefighter uniform. His face goes slack when he sees the men in suits. Dad, what have you done? What you couldn't. Frank's laugh turns into a cough. Your wife has the resources to fix this, don't you, Chelsea? The larger suit steps forward. Mr. Marshall's debt needs to be settled tonight. One way or another. I think of Sophie at Laura's house, probably drawing another family portrait. Would she draw me even smaller this time, or leave me out entirely? You're right, I say quietly. I do have resources. Emily makes a small, hopeful sound. Mark starts to speak, but I cut him off. I have proof of every transaction, every lie, every theft. I pull out my phone, showing the screen. One call and the FBI's financial crimes unit gets everything. The smaller suit moves toward me, but Frank raises his hand. She's bluffing. Try me. My finger hovers over the contact. I'd rather see everyone go down than give you another cent. You'd destroy your daughter's family, Frank wheezes. You already did that. I turn to Mark. Tell him what the chief said today. Mark's voice cracks. They're suspending me, pending investigation. Because someone leaked those gambling debts, Emily whispers. Daddy, I promised to protect this family. Frank slams his hand on the table. Everything I did was to secure our legacy. By stealing Sophie's college fund, I laugh, the sound sharp enough to make Emily flinch. By forcing Mark to choose between his sister and his daughter. The suits exchange glances. The larger one speaks. Mr. Marshall, you said this would be handled quietly. It will be. Frank's eyes narrow. Because Chelsea here is going to transfer the money right now. Unless she wants Sophie to learn what happens to families that don't pay their debts. The threat hangs in the air like smoke. Mark steps between me and the suits, his firefighter's instinct to protect still strong, despite everything. Nobody's threatening my daughter, he growls. Your daughter? Frank laughs again. The one you've barely seen this month because you're working overtime to cover my debts. Some father you are. Mark lunges forward, but Emily screams. Stop! Please, just stop! She pulls something from her purse, a recorder. I have everything. The threats, the manipulation, all of it. Her hands shake as she holds it out. I won't let you hurt anyone else, Daddy. Frank's face contorts. You ungrateful little... The door bursts open again. Laura stands there with two police officers, her face grim. Got it all on tape, Chelsea, including that threat against Sophie. Time seems to freeze. Frank's oxygen tank wheezes in the silence. The suits move toward the door, but the officers block their path. You set me up, Frank says softly. His eyes find mine, and for a moment, I see something like respect there. Well played, but as the officers move in, reading rights and snapping handcuffs, I feel no triumph. Just emptiness. Mark stands frozen, watching his father being led away. Emily sobs in the corner. Our family, shattered beyond repair. My phone buzzes, a text from Laura's husband. Sophie keeps asking when you're coming home. She won't stop crying. The victory turns to ashes in my mouth. I've won everything and lost everything at once. Frank will face justice, but Sophie will grow up with a grandfather in prison, an aunt in ruins, and parents who may never trust each other again. Mark touches my arm, the first time he's reached for me in weeks. What now? I look at him, really look at him, and see not the man who betrayed me, but the boy still desperate for his father's approval. The same approval Sophie seeks in her drawings. Now? My voice sounds distant to my own ears. Now we see what's left to save. But as we walk out of the casino into the cold night air, I wonder if there's anything left to save at all. The visitation room at the county jail feels smaller than my office bathroom. Frank sits across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin, oxygen tank replaced by prison-issued nasal cannula. 2 weeks in custody have aged him a decade. Laura sends her regards, I say, sliding a folder across the metal table. She wanted me to show you these personally. His hands shake as he opens it. Inside are photos, Laura's husband at their country club, with Frank's bookie, surveillance footage of cash exchanges, text messages about Sophie's school schedule. You weren't the only one playing both sides, I continue. Laura's husband lost everything to those same bookies 5 years ago. She's been tracking them ever since. Frank's laugh turns into a wheezing cough. So the loyal friend was just another player in the game? Like father, like daughter. I pull out Emily's USB drive. She wasn't just recording your confessions. She was gathering evidence for the FBI's ongoing investigation. Turns out her fashion business was the perfect cover for monitoring illegal gambling operations. The color drains from his face. Emily wouldn't. She did. The moment you threatened Sophie. I lean forward. That's the thing about manipulation, Frank. Eventually, people learn from the master. The door opens. Emily walks in, designer clothes replaced by a federal agent's badge. Mark follows, still in his firefighter uniform, his face carved from stone. "Hello, Daddy," Emily says softly. "Ready to make your statement?" Frank's hands curl into fists. "You ungrateful—" "Choose your next words carefully," Mark interrupts. "They're being recorded." Everything was for this family. Frank slams his palms on the table. The gambling, the debts, I was building connections, securing our future. By stealing Sophie's future, my voice stays eerily calm. By forcing Mark to compromise his integrity. By using Emily's guilt to turn her into your unwitting informant. I made her stronger. Frank's eyes dart between us. I made all of you stronger. Emily places a recorder on the table. No, you made us bitter, suspicious, unable to trust. She presses play. Frank's voice fills the room, discussing payment schedules with his bookie, mentioning Sophie's school. The FBI has been watching your bookie for months, she continues. All they needed was someone on the inside, someone with a believable cover story and access to the right social circles. A fashion designer with expensive taste, I add. Desperate for Daddy's approval, Frank slumps in his chair, defeat finally crossing his face. How long? Since the first time you used my business to launder money, Emily says. 3 years of collecting evidence, watching you destroy our family piece by piece. Mark steps forward. The fire department reinstated me. Turns out being an unwitting pawn in an FBI investigation looks better than being a willing accomplice to fraud. And Sophie? Frank's voice cracks. Will grow up knowing her father chose justice over loyalty, I say. That her aunt found her courage. That sometimes protecting family means standing against them. Frank looks at each of us. The daughter he manipulated, the son he betrayed, the daughter-in-law he underestimated. And what happens now? Now? Emily picks up the recorder. Now you give us everything. Names, dates, transactions. Every person you dragged into your web of debts and threats. And if I refuse, I stand, straightening my jacket. Then Sophie grows up visiting her grandfather in maximum security instead of minimum. Your choice. Always the negotiator, Frank says quietly. I taught you well. No, I correct him. You taught me what not to be. Emily, Mark, he's all yours. I walk toward the door, but Frank's voice stops me. Chelsea? Was any of it real? The family dinners, the holidays, the traditions. Looking back, I see not the manipulative patriarch, but a broken man facing the consequences of his choices. The love was real, I say finally. That's what made the betrayal possible. As I leave, I hear Emily beginning the formal interview, Mark's steady presence beside her. My phone buzzes. A text from Laura. Sophie's drawing again. This time, everyone's the same size. Outside the prison, the sun feels warmer somehow. In destroying Frank's web of lies, we'd built something stronger. Truth, accountability, justice. Not the revenge I'd originally sought, but maybe something better. My daughter would grow up understanding that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be manipulated by it. The courtroom empties slowly after Frank's sentencing, but I stay seated, watching him shuffle out in chains. His oxygen tank wheezes with each step, a familiar sound that no longer stirs any emotion in me. 10 years, Mark says beside me, plus restitution. The money doesn't matter anymore. I gather my things, avoiding his gaze. Sophie's college fund is secure. I made sure of that. Emily appears in the doorway, her FBI badge catching the light. The task force found 3 more victims, families Frank manipulated through their children's private school connections. Always the perfect grandfather, I murmur, until the mask slipped. Outside, autumn wind whips leaves across the courthouse steps. Mark reaches for my arm, then thinks better of it. Chelsea, about the divorce papers. I'm not signing them. The words surprise us both. Not yet. Why? I think of Sophie's latest drawing, pinned to our refrigerator. The family's still separated, but now with bridges sketched between the figures in wobbly crayon lines. Because Sophie's smarter than all of us, I say. She sees the bridges we're too angry to build. Emily shifts uncomfortably. I should go. There's still paperwork. Stay. The word comes out sharper than intended. You're part of this too. The lies, the manipulation, the eventual truth. We all played our roles. Some better than others, Laura calls from the bottom of the steps. She holds up a manila envelope. Final report from the financial investigation. Thought you'd want to see it first. I take the envelope but don't open it. How long did you know? About your husband's connection to Frank's bookies? Long enough to recognize the patterns. Laura's smile is tired. Long enough to want someone else to expose them. You used me, I say quietly. I helped you find the truth. There's a difference. Mark's phone buzzes. Sophie's school. His face pales as he reads the message. She had another anxiety attack, asked for both of us this time. The envelope in my hand suddenly weighs nothing. All the evidence, all the victories, all the revenge, none of it matters compared to those crayon bridges. Emily, I turn to my sister-in-law. The FBI can wait. Come with us. Why would you want? Because Sophie draws you in her pictures too. And maybe it's time we all learn to see through her eyes. The drive to school is silent, heavy with unspoken words. But when we arrive, Sophie runs to us with a new drawing. This time, the figures are holding hands, forming a circle. In the center, she's drawn a heart. It's our new family, she explains proudly. See? Everyone's connected. Mark kneels beside her, voice rough. Even after everything that happened? Especially after, she says with 5-year-old wisdom, because now nobody has to pretend anymore. I feel Laura watching from her car across the street, the manila envelope still unopened in my bag. There will be time later for consequences, for rebuilding trust, for navigating the complicated landscape of a family transformed by truth. But right now, looking at Sophie's drawing, I understand something Frank never did. Legacy isn't about control or manipulation, or even revenge. It's about the choices we make when the masks fall away. Ready to go home? I ask Sophie, including Mark and Emily in my glance. Which home? Emily asks softly. The one we build together, I answer, without lies this time. As we walk to the car, Sophie between us, I think about the unopened envelope, the unsigned divorce papers, the countless decisions still ahead. We're not healed. Maybe we never will be completely. But we're honest now, and maybe that's a better foundation than the perfect facade we used to maintain. Sophie tugs my hand, pointing to a new drawing she's starting. I'm going to need more colors, she announces, for all the bridges. Mark meets my eyes over her head, and I see in his face the same understanding that's been growing in me. Revenge may have exposed the truth, but it's forgiveness, complicated, messy, conditional forgiveness, that might actually set us free. I squeezed Sophie's hand, thinking of Frank in his prison cell, still believing he was protecting his legacy. He never understood that real legacy isn't what you control. It's what you choose to rebuild from the ashes of control's failure.